Hello, and welcome to the Sound Up Seattle podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Seattle and Washington sports. I'm your host, Tyler Cartwright, joined as always by my co-host,
John Carey.
And we are here today with John being a little sick, a little under the weather, and not a ton of Seattle sports to talk about. We've got the Jorge Polanco deal to talk through, then we're going to talk a little just general Mariners offseason, a little Super Bowl, a little bit of a bunch of other things, and just kind of shoot the crap with John and Tyler here. So we hope you guys enjoy. Anything to say before we get started, John?
Shoot me in the head. I hate having the flu, but this is my flu game, baby. I'm gonna rise above. This is gonna be the best one we've done.
All right, here is some Coyote Picnic.
Been a while since I left this town.
All right, John. First things first, let's talk about the real news that's happened over the last week. Since we last talked, we had said there wasn't a ton of Mariners news, and I think the next day or 2 days later, the Mariners made what is probably their biggest move of the offseason and what has been said by Adam Jude as their last move of the offseason in terms of free agent signings. So what I want to do is talk through that move. We're going to talk about, the pros and cons, what could come of that, and then I want to talk through where the Mariners are at with their offseason. We're going to kind of grade it, but like based on what we've heard the Mariners were in on, what they were trying to do, how much money they've had to spend, all these different things, because at the end of the day, you can only work with what was given to you, and we can grade them on that. So Jorge Polanco brought back to the team, immediate gut reaction, John, go.
Yeah, it's a 1-2 punch to the sternum. I'm having a hard time breathing right now. On the one hand, nothing. Jorge seems like a consummate professional, but he had an awful year. He was super disappointing. Not at all what we hoped he would be coming from the Twins. Is that right, Minnesota?
Mm-hmm.
And I did not want him coming back at all. The fact that he's coming back, to me, is a bad sign. And the fact that this can fairly be described as the biggest offseason move that the Mariners are having this year is gross.
Yeah, it's a little gross. The problem is when you look at Jorge Polanco, to me, and I guess the problem is not that we signed Jorge Polanco, it's that this is the move. This was their move, and everybody knows that this was not their first, second, or probably even third option when it comes to acquisitions for this offseason. We talked, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago about Carlos Santana and them trying to make an offer that was bigger than the Cleveland offer. We talked about Justin Turner, how they've been likely working with him. And just haven't really come to anything. And I think just when at the end of the day, you're getting Jorge Polanco, who we had traded for, and he was set to make $12 million, and we let him go, and then we re-sign him for $7 million with some incentives. So $5 million off the player who obviously didn't perform. We weren't excited about that in terms of his performance, but has a track record. And at the end of the season, he was actually hitting pretty well. There's a case to be made that he was dealing with some injuries in terms of his tendon stuff in his knees and his hamstring early on. It's like this guy could have, turned it around in that second half, and that might be what we see from Jorge Polanco. But the fact that that is the major move is a little frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, he finished the season batting .222 in September, .215 in August. He peaked at .241 at the end of July. Yeah, I get what you're saying. The maneuvering was well done, I guess. Credit. Say what you will about DePoto, he knows how to be cheap. So getting $5 million off this deal does not surprise me in the slightest. And yeah, I suppose there's a certain level of it can't actually be worse than last year, right? Like he does have a track record. He's going to be 31, probably 32 coming into next season. What are the odds that he falls off from where he was? Maybe he's worth a $7 million investment. But so I guess I'm not trying to throw as much dirt on Jorge as I am trying to note, I can't believe this is it. We can talk about whether or not there is, how much of a leverage thing it is to say that they're completely done for the year. But knowing this ownership group, it does not seem like they're going to go get anybody. And they just left some glaring holes on this roster. If they would have re-signed Jorge to this deal and then got out and gotten, Pete Alonso or another, first baseman, I would feel so much better about this offseason. But he kind of gets double hit by the fact that he wasn't very good last year, and he's getting hit by the fact that he is taking the top spot in terms of offseason acquisition, where we were hoping for somebody significantly better.
Yeah, and I think realistically, once we heard about the Mariners in terms of their budget for 2025 or this offseason, it was basically $15 million, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly. And, Donovan Solano was 3.5, I believe. Jorge Polanco $7 million. So that eats up 4 or 5, or there's $4.5 million left to go if you aren't including the incentives that Jorge has. But there's just not a lot to work with there. And when it comes to this team and what they want to do, I think you would have to shed some payroll when it comes to the Mitches. Haniger's contract is pretty big. Garver's contract is pretty big. If they had found a way to, move a Castillo with a Haniger or a Castillo with a Garver for a piece such that they could supplement the pitching staff, because at the end of the day, the pitching staff is their bread and butter, and they would have wanted that fifth spot. They don't want Emerson Hancock coming in and being that fifth starter. He's just, he's not built for that. If they could have supplemented that or gone and signed a free agent pitcher that wasn't, $15 million. Basically, it was like $15 million for any competent free agent pitcher at this point.
Yeah.
It was just really hard to put things together team wise. And I'm okay with what they did. Obviously, I would have liked them to do something more. I think there's a world where we see them, make some moves in the trade market, and we see that early in the year when it comes to trying to pull somebody from the Rays or a team that isn't sure if they're going to be competing. Or they start off pretty poorly and think that they can just kind of sell throughout the season. But I think at the end of the day, Jorge Polanco, like you said, is getting a little hit by he's the last guy. Is this really it? And I think a lot of Mariners fans are kind of happy. The casuals are pretty happy that Jorge is coming back because people like the guy. He's like you said, a professional.
Good locker room guy.
Good locker room guy. No complaints, really. He just didn't perform, and he was dealing with injuries. So we're really, really banking on 1 year at T-Mobile Park and maybe the ability to rebound with some of that experience hitting there. And I think that's kind of where we're looking at. It does,
Tyler,
the Twitter.
Who's playing first base for us this year?
It's going to be Luke Raley and Donovan Solano.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Talk about Twitter.
No. The Twitter sphere kind of is an echo chamber of madness when it comes to Polo, and just how frustrated people are with that being the move. So I think the average Mariners fan is a little bit more happy with this move. They don't really know that there's more to be had, more meat to be taken off the bone when it comes to free agency. But DePoto is doing what he can with what he's got, because that $15 million a year wouldn't have even gotten us Pete Alonso. Or $50 million this offseason wouldn't have even gotten us Pete Alonso unless we had moved Miss Garver's contract or Mitch Haniger. It's those constraints, and that's ownership's fault. I'm not saying that it's not a thing that shouldn't upset us, but it's they're doing what they can with what they were given in terms of Jerry DePoto and Justin Hollander. Sure.
Well, he's still, I don't know. I understand. I guess if I had that job, I'd probably just eat shit and do my job too, but it's ridiculous. This talk about salary cap, look at the Dodgers. Goodness gracious. There's no such thing as a salary cap in professional baseball.
So frustrating.
And I can really understand why it's okay, we're pretty mid, or okay, we're young, or okay, we're shit. I'm not going to invest a ton in this roster and just burn money if I'm an owner. I get that. But if you're going to own a sports team and you're looking at a roster where it's no, the top end of this roster is fantastic. We just need some guys in the middle. We need some 4, 5, 6 hitters to turn this into a roster that can really compete. We're not even asking you to go out and get, one of the best players in the MLB. We're just asking you to spend a little cash and fill out the middle. And I do think it's inexcusable. And it's the point, it's not Depoto's fault, but fuck Depoto. This team, with how it's built, has everything it needs to contend if they would have just put a tiny little bit more effort in, and they didn't. And that is incredibly frustrating to me. Because if you're not going to do it in situations like this, then you're never going to do it.
I think that's the thing that can upset people, and that is what we're looking at, and we can say, okay, this is the worst thing to come out of this because we have now learned the limits of this ownership group. I think they might have the lowest net worth as an ownership group, or John Stanton might, in terms of all of the MLB, and their inability to commit. It's if this team, we've seen it before. We've seen it when we made the playoffs 3 years ago at this point. We've seen it. This city shows out for this team when they do well and when they play well. If this team won a World Series, you would get
think about all the merch.
5,000 more Mariner like season ticket holders just like coming in assuredly the next season. You would get so many more tickets. You would just sell so much more merch. All this stuff. It would make your team value just inherently go up if you win a World Series. Like if you brought a World Series to Seattle, the team value would inherently increase. They could sell the team and live off whatever profits they made from that.
Correct.
And they'd be totally fine. But
and they would also
it's
guess
their
what?
inability to commit, and they're just not risk takers. I think that's the problem. Is people with money don't like to take risks. They like to just sit on it and let it grow.
Well, then invest in the fucking stock market. That's the thing that drives me crazy is like, one, you're 100% right. If this team won a World Series, hell, if this team made an ALCS, jersey sales alone would cover the additional expenses that they would be putting into the team. So it's not only is it just bad math on their part, but it's also like you own a fucking sports team. It can't be all about the money. Do you have no interest in being like beloved in the city of Seattle forever? Stanton, would you really rather be hated by a full third of the population of Seattle and the other 2/3 don't give a shit about you? Or would you rather be actively loved by 60% of the city? It's insane that people with that much money in industry as money-friendly as professional sports, that you aren't willing to give a little bit to try to get something out of it.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have said it much better. It's just super frustrating in terms of it's really the ownership group. Like it's like that Dipoto has the ability to make these moves. The team is so well. It's 80% of the way there to being an actual World Series competitor.
Correct.
Like we need 2 hitters, maybe even 1, to really lengthen the lineup. Donovan Solano as your 9 hitter is golden, but now we have Donovan Solano as our 7 hitter.
Yeah.
Dylan Moore and Ryan Bliss hitting every day. It's like it just doesn't make sense.
Everything is just too high. We were talking about it. All these players get better when they're being shifted down into a more appropriate spot for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that being said, I think this is the opportunity for Cole Young to try and prove himself. I think he's a top 50 prospect right now. Second baseman, he'll come in. Jorge, I don't think I've even said this, but Jorge will be playing third for those of you that haven't heard that already.
Oh, they're moving him.
Cole
Okay,
Young
I
will
didn't know that.
probably come in. I know Ben Williamson has some talk as in terms of playing third base, so maybe he'll be able to spell Jorge if he deals with any sort of injuries. But relying on prospects can be the death of a franchise, because if those prospects don't pan out, you're just stuck for another couple of years until you can re-sign people and your soon-to-be free agents or upcoming free agents leave. It's just like, it just doesn't work. You have to sign players or trade your prospects. The development process is done. We developed the best pitching staff in the MLB. We developed Julio, and we traded for Randy. We traded for Victor Robles. They need to do the third thing. They just need to sign players, spend money, and that is what everybody would love if the Mariners did that.
Yeah, it's so frustrating, man. So frustrating. And it is, it's one of those things with professional sports. You see it all over sports. Even the idea of the Lakers and stuff. Not only do they often spend more, but people just want to be there more, which is fine.
Yeah.
I get that. It's not Los Angeles' fault. It's typically not on fire and very beautiful. But it's just how long does the MLB think the Dodgers spending almost twice as much as some of these other teams? How long is that sustainable for the sport? Do you really think all Mariners fans are going to stay engaged if they're literally spending half the money and watching all the superstars congregate in Los Angeles? This is literally, it's not what was killing baseball, but if you don't see this as a potential disease, you better. Sure, LA fans have never been happier, and there have probably never been more of them. But people are going to stop giving a shit about this sport if you stop treating it like something with any sort of parity. It just kind of drives me nuts. One last thing, because to your point, Stanton, his group, their equity is pretty low compared to a lot of these groups. And so, maybe they're being perfectly average MLB owners. They just, when you scale things based on assets, they're doing things, how they can. With that being said, so frustrating living in Billionaire City, the home of Microsoft and Amazon, with some of the richest men walking around on the planet. We've got fucking John Stanton owning the Mariners and nobody interested in owning the Sonics. It's insane. What's the matter with Bill Gates? Stop sending all that money to help kids in Africa and help the Mariners. Obviously, I'm kidding. But
if
he
you
could do
guys,
both.
if you guys make us billionaires, we will buy the team. Like we will do that 100%.
If our listeners, if each of you donates $100,000, I think we can reach our goal and buy the Mariners.
Oh,
we're big over in
anyways.
Bellevue. We need those. We need those, those big spenders.
Oh, what was I going to say? Oh, this was in regards to the Luka Doncic trade, actually. It's like, you see what happened with the Dallas Mavericks, the Dallas Mavericks fan base when you trade a guy like Luka. It's kind of what's happened with the Mariners when it comes to their ineptitude has made fans or people that would be fans of baseball not fans of baseball. It's just like, oh, the Mariners have been bad for 20 years. There's no reason for us to watch.
Correct.
The entire city of Seattle, whether I want to admit it or not, 80% of my friends don't care about the Mariners because they haven't been good. And it's just so tough to see that. And, I'm relating that to Dallas because people follow their favorite players now. It's not necessarily a game of teams anymore. You need to sign players. You can't just build a team of, just above average guys to get fans as well. Like, you need to actually commit to these players and these people because they are what bring fans to your franchise. It's not, if you won a World Series, obviously you would get fans, but the players and the day-to-day stuff is what makes a team enjoyable to watch. And the Mariners just kind of suck at that. Like, Julio's great at it in terms of marketing. Like, he's one of the most marketable stars. But, we barely see anything from Randy, and he's been one of our biggest acquisitions ever in terms of the trade market.
Yeah.
Victor Robles coming off like an awesome year. And I don't know, it's tough to warrant using him as a marketable piece because he hasn't been great most of his career. But it's like those guys, the Mariners just need to do better in terms of utilizing their stars and growing this fan base, I think, as a whole. Yeah. And that will help the ownership group earn more money. And they're just soiling that away right now by not spending any money. Like, it's just getting worse every year.
It is just kind of a crazy thing because you have to spend money to make money. That's like the whole thing. Nowhere in the stock market is just like, just put your money right here and then walk away forever and things will be great. That's not how things work. You have to be a little aggressive with this shit, nut up a little bit. It's very frustrating. But yeah, Dallas, classic. Another player going to Los Angeles. I feel bad for the Los Angeles sports stars. There are already a lot of mansions. I'm wondering if some of them are having to downgrade into duplexes or something just because there's not enough space for all of them. Never been at this many stars in LA
actually living
before.
in a duplex together.
He's doing his gambling for Shohei now. That's great.
Oh, all right. Another quick note. Cade Marlowe, left fielder, kind of a fourth outfielder designated for assignment in this move, acquiring Jorge Polanco. Just a note. I don't really think it's that important. We've got our outfield kind of set. So that's just something that he played on this team last year and the year before and was somewhat relevant. So if you don't see him, that's why he's not dished down in AAA.
Yeah, it'll be a bummer. I like Cade.
Yeah.
Do you know when does the MLB trade deadline officially close?
It's usually the end of July or like the last Friday of July or something like that.
So
if I remember right.
Tons and tons of time. They're just saying you're done. Okay, that's very illuminating. It's, I'm still holding out hope that they're full of shit and just trying to leverage certain moves, but I'm not super optimistic.
I think what it comes down to is they're done with free agents, is what they said. I don't know, there's I'm sure Jerry's always working the trades and trying to figure out what he could do. If we can get a player and trade for a Nolan Arenado so that Jorge can move back to second, and that would make things exponentially better. But
so much better everywhere.
So I think keep our eyes on the trade market, but I think in terms of free agents, like, don't be hoping for an Alex Bregman or a Pete Alonso or anything like that. So
yeah, not holding my breath.
We'll deal with that. Do you want to give a grade for this? We kind of just gave our own grade without saying it. So let's just give a letter and then
F.
Keep it going.
F?
Wow.
F.
Hot take.
I literally don't know how I could have been more disappointed with this offseason.
I'm going to give it a C+.
Wow.
C+, because they did what they were able to do with the budget, and I think they will make more moves. Like, at the end of the day, the managerial and ownership side of things, that sucked. But in terms of team construction, they actually made some pretty decent moves. I would have been happy with Jorge. Jorge at $7 million, I'm so much happier with that than like a Yohan Moncada or Brendan Rodgers, like the guys that we talked about last week, where there's potential for them to make these moves. So I think Jorge has the potential to bounce back. That's kind of what I'm hoping for.
Sure.
And he raises the floor as a floor raiser. Like,
Sure.
He's an MLB professional player. He's not a guy that's on the downturn. He's just coming back off an injury.
Sure. Yeah, I get everything you're saying, but I'm too butthurt to not give it an F. I'm glad you're being a little more sensible.
Sean's in an emotional state right now.
Maybe I'll
he's
give
curled
him
up with his hoodie.
A D-. I don't know. How's that sound?
I like that. All right. Yeah, we don't need to talk more about the Mariners. We're done with that. That was 20 minutes too long about the Mariners. Let's talk UW coaching. I think this is something that has been developing over the last couple weeks. University of Washington football has lost quite a few coaches this offseason when it comes to Steve Belichick leaving to coach at UNC with his father, and it comes to, I don't even remember what the offensive lineman's coach's name is.
Brennan Carroll.
Brennan
we lost
Carroll.
both.
I knew it was
we
Carroll.
Lost both the head coach. We lost both our head coach sons, and we lost both of them to their daddies. Absolutely crazy. Can't believe that bit us in the ass.
I know.
We thought they were all coming to UW.
Jed Fish enough for that. It's crazy.
Yeah. It would. It's interesting to think if they would have kept. No reason to live too much in hindsight, but if they would have kept DeBoer, and if UW would have been, respectable last year, if they would have been, a little over 500 in the Big Ten and maybe won a bowl game, I wonder if those two still leave, because there has to be a certain level of I'm tired of riding my daddy's coattails and everybody thinking I'm a Nepo baby. But, if you can get a job in the NFL as opposed to staying on this current UW team, maybe that's a reasonable thing to do.
I mean, for Brennan Carroll, yeah. For Steve Belichick, we actually really liked Steve Belichick last year, and he goes to UNC. I guess maybe it's the East Coast if he wants to be living over there.
He is in UNC. Good call.
But I don't know. I think he was doing a really good job at UW, and maybe it's weird because Bill is going to overshadow him in all aspects of the game. It's Bill's a defensive-minded coach. It's what is the point of that?
100%. It's he is a defensive-minded coach. Belichick will get the DC job, but how much is he actually going to have control over this defense? And it's his dad. It kind of blows my mind. That family must just be kind of weird. I guess if your dad is dating somebody half your age, maybe you respect him more. I don't know.
Would you, if you had a job, so for those of you that are listening to the podcast and are new, we're both engineers. If your dad was an engineer and in the same field that we are, but engineer at not even Apple, let's give him what's a middle of the road WSP, a kind of a worldwide firm, but nothing crazy. But if your dad was at WSP and wanted to get you to come work there, my dad used to do this all the time. Would you just go and work there for nothing, for no reason other than to be working with your dad?
With daddy? See, I don't think so. That's not for me.
It's something that I feel like I would not take 100% of the time. And especially if you're at the spot where it's not moving you up in any way, it just doesn't make sense in terms of growing yourself as a coach and as a person. So tough for those guys and tough for me to look at them and say, hey, nice moves, but I guess we'll respect it.
Yeah, absolutely insane. Really crazy, but what to do? I do wonder, Steve Belichick's wife, Jennifer, is in her 40s, as is Steve, early 40s, late 30s, early 40s, somewhere in there. So they're both over a decade older than Bill's new girlfriend. I wonder if they ever get dinner, the four of them, I wonder how weird that is. I wonder about these things. Now that scenario was weird enough. Imagine your dad in your same industry who does the same thing as you, offers you a job, but you also have to hang out with him and his girlfriend that's half your age. That's it right there. He could offer me way more money. It's I do not want to deal with that.
The weirdest thing is Bill's girlfriend is closer in age to Steve's son than to Steve.
That is disgusting. Closer to his grandchild than to his child. Yuck.
Ugh. Reminds me of Kicking and Screaming. Did you ever see that movie, Kicking and Screaming?
No, I
Will Ferrell?
Kicking and Screaming.
It was early. Who was PETA in the Hunger Games? Josh something.
Oh yeah, I know that guy.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about.
PETA,
black-haired guy from Bridge to Terabithia, the little kid.
That's right, Terabithia boy.
I don't remember what his name is, but Josh something. But he was in Kicking and Screaming, and that was just a goated movie. And in this entire scenario, this is what happened in that movie.
Yeah, Pretty freaky, man. Pretty freaky. I get why he wants to move to the South. I think that thing is more smiled on. He might have to get to South Carolina. Even North Carolina might be too far north. He's got to get below that Mason-Dixon if he wants people smiling on that baby.
I think thinking about kicking and screaming, Bill Belichick probably produced that because I think they ended up coaching together. So like he just made Steve watch that a lot when he was younger and really instilled that in his memory. At
some point, I'm gonna leave your mother. You know that fourth grader, 8 grades below you, pretty cute. Maybe in 20 years.
Oh, all right. Anyways, enough with ratting on the Belichicks.
I forgot we were talking about UW coaching. Sorry, I'm sick. I follow trails.
No, that's what this pod is about. We're just here to talk smack. So I appreciate it.
But yeah, a couple big losses. Obviously, Steve and Brennan, the two HC Sons, walking away. We already knew that we were going to get Jimmy Doherty. I never know how to pronounce that last name.
Doherty, something like that, yeah.
To OC. He was the quarterbacks coach last year. And the assistant OL coach, Michael Switzer, got moved up to offensive line coach. By the way, Carroll did both. He was the OC and the offensive line coach. So we needed 2 guys to fill that one spot. But the big news coming today, or a couple days ago, is Ryan Walters, former head coach of Purdue, coming in at defensive coordinator. What are your first thoughts there, T?
I'm okay with it. Getting a fellow Big Ten coach coming in. I don't know if he was a head coach or just a
he was head coach
Purdue
at Purdue.
Coach. Okay, was he there right now? Like
correct.
To drop a head coaching job to go do a defensive coordinator job is kind of interesting. But
Purdue finished 1-11, so I'm not sure they were welcoming him.
I don't know how
back
much they were keeping
building.
him around. Yeah,
he finished. He's a long time. He's kind of a cool guy. He's pretty young. I think he's 39 or so. Played 4 seasons of D1 football at Colorado, 2008 to 2010, I believe, or 2004 to 2008. But literally finished his career at Colorado and immediately started coaching. He's been coaching since 2009 and just, one of those guys slowly rising through the ranks. DB coach, safety coach, cornerback coach, defensive coordinator. Was defensive coordinator at Mizzou for about 5 years and then Illinois and then moved on to Purdue for his only head coaching gig. So he's kind of returning home in terms of defensive coordinator. Purdue did not go well. 5-19 in 2 years. I imagine they said no thank you. But obviously, a talented guy. I like guys that just like climb like this over the course of, 15 years. It just, at no point does he drop off the face of the earth because at every level he knows what he's doing to a certain degree.
Yeah, I think he's a nice baseline. I don't know that we'll see too much coming out of him in terms of the defensive scheme or anything like that. But
sure. As
a defensive coach that can work with the players, it seems like he's a guy that's been in the game for long enough, been around all the different coaching positions and all the things like that. So it'll allow him to at least provide a presence in that defensive side of the ball that will be nice. As a coordinator, we'll see if that works well. Purdue's been in the Big Ten for a while, so maybe he's got a little bit more experience in terms of him bouncing around. But I think either way he'll be a nice addition.
Yeah. Played free safety at Colorado. I feel like safeties and linebackers always make the best coaches. I don't know what about that transition just makes great DCs, but love seeing a safety. Get that secondary whipped up. He knows what it takes.
Good. All right, that's kind of it in terms of UW. I just wanted to touch on that because It's been Jed Fish he had his first press conference in a while. And it was needed after all the turmoil that happened in turnover this offseason. So some exciting things on the horizon. I think he's still recruiting pretty well, so we'll see how this class turns up. But
yeah, and it's a big deal. Yeah, all the head coaching staff besides him walking out and him having to replace them. I like him hiring in-house. That's always good. I like him going out and getting another head coach from the Big Ten. Kind of a big dick move. I love that. It's a bummer to see those 2 guys leave, but it's not like last year went spectacularly anyway, so might as well try something new.
This is John off the rails. He's swearing every time he gets a line.
Okay, I feel bad. Now I got to share this with the world. You have to bleep me left and right on this one. All right, I think that's basically all we had for Seattle sports, right?
Yeah, you want to jump into some just Super Bowl talk? It's at this point we're becoming a sports podcast. Yeah. Let's talk Super Bowl. It's going to be a fun week.
You guys, it's a quiet week in Seattle sports. Are you not going to let us talk about the Super Bowl? Come on, don't be that way.
Those of you that have listened to this point and are still waiting on us to talk about the Storm, we talked about it last week. We were ahead of the game on that one.
Yeah, we killed the Storm talk. Go listen. That was our best stuff. Nobody's listening to our Storm stuff. That stuff's awesome.
All right, let's talk a little Super Bowl.
Change you want to see in the world. Yeah, let's talk Super Bowl. So we're getting the rematch. We're getting the, 2023 rematch between the Chiefs and the Eagles.
Sounds right.
I've got a fun little game for us to play, but before that, are there any just kind of big thoughts you want to discuss?
No big thoughts. I don't think you mentioned this pre-pod, but I want to bring it up right now because it's important. Do you think Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are going to get engaged after this?
No, I don't think so. It's one of those things where obviously they would only do it if they won. And I really don't think Taylor Swift is the type of person that wants an engagement planned on like a conditional, I don't want to be like, fair. Maybe we'll get engaged tonight or maybe it's going to suck, I imagine. I think she gets plenty of attention, but I could be wrong. That's
my thing. I think she doesn't need any more attention. Like she's probably wanting this to be like in the comfort of their house or something like simple.
I think she would.
I'm not expecting it to be a post Super Bowl engagement.
Yeah, I think that would piss more people off than it would make them happy. And I think both of them are smart enough to know they're kind of pushing the line a little bit on what people want to see, and stepping over it too far might bite them back a little bit. So I'm going to say no to the engagement.
I can appreciate that. All right, let's do your segment.
Okay. We miss our value dogs. We miss talking gambling. We're a couple of degenerates. Not that we ever do it because it's illegal in the state, but we love talking about it and definitely not doing it.
It's illegal where you are, brother.
Oh, shit. You son of a gun. I should be Venmoing you all the time. That's my mistake. You be my bookie. So we've got 7 kind of yes or no, pick a side questions for the Super Bowl. And what we're going to do, I'm going to read you all 7, and then we're going to have a draft. So I'll let you go first since I wrote these out, and you just pick any one of them and pick a side. I would automatically get the other side. So, for example, one of them is who's going to win, Chiefs or the Eagles. So if you think you really know who's going to do that, you'd probably take that first and say, Eagles or whatever. Then I automatically get the Chiefs, and then I pick one of the other ones. And the idea is it's 7. Somebody's bound to win. I want to see which one of us knows these things better, and which one of us, I think it's really an exercise in like scaling. Like which one of these do I need to grab now? Which one of these is more of a toss-up? I can save it down the line.
Yeah, you read them all off to me before the pod, and I was like, okay, I actually think I have a good strategy for this. So can you read them off for the listeners and for me again? Because
absolutely.
I forgot what they were.
Starting with the quarterbacks, will Jalen Hurts have over 200 pass yards? Yes or no? Or I guess Jalen Hurts pass yards over under 200. Patrick Mahomes rushing yards over under 30. Travis Kelce receiving yards over under 60. Saquon Barkley rushing yards over under 110. Now that's big, but the dude's been a monster in the playoffs. So honestly, I like that one quite a bit. Will we see a missed kick from one of the kickers? Who's going to win? Pick the dub. And the last one is, will the refs make a controversial call? And that, that shouldn't be too iffy. Every time they've done it, it's been pretty obvious, and Twitter has exploded. If Twitter explodes again, then we'll know. Yeah.
So with my first pick, I'm going to take what is probably the most obvious one on that list when it comes to easiest pick. Controversial call, with the caveat of we can kind of gauge the controversialness of the call because Twitter will explode about any play at any point during this game. But I'm going to take that the refs will make a controversial call because it's the Chiefs. Everybody is going to complain about something, whether it's the Xavier Worthy catch from last week, something like that. That's definitely a controversial call. But to that scale, who knows? But I do think it's going to happen no matter what. Whether it's to help the Chiefs or just something crazy that happens during the game, it's going to happen.
Sure. It's a tough game to ref. A controversial call in any game's decent odds. And I think, I see why you would bump that up first. My only counter is there's just been so much of that all year. On the biggest stage, I wouldn't be shocked if, they might still influence the game, but they might just do, more offensive holding calls where it's like, okay, did he or didn't he, I wouldn't be surprised.
They're holding every play. You can call it whenever you want.
Exactly. Exactly. So maybe they're just a little more strategic about it and avoid the big controversy. But that's a good pick. I see why you took it. I think I'm going to take the second easiest one. Super Bowls, they're high leverage. You're scrapping and scraping for points. These are two good defenses. Both these kickers have had their ups and downs this season. And I think, with these defenses on the field, I'm expecting a couple 50-yard field goals. I think the odds are over 50% that we're going to get a missed kick at some point. So I'm going to take the miss on kicks.
That one scares me a little bit, only because I think at this point in the season, they probably would rather go for it and try and go for 7, or punt it and lock them down inside the 10. I think those are the two options that they prefer in terms of long kicks. It's cold. I guess it's New Orleans, so it's not as cold, but it's still the end of the season. I feel like just the kicking doesn't happen nearly as frequently, and the type of kicks, you're not having Dallas playing the Saints kicking from 55. You're having two teams that are really grinding it out, and they want those yards any way that they can get them. And I think, on any sort of 4th and 2, they're going to, the Eagles are going to basically be going for it.
Yeah.
So I think that kicking is actually going to be limited by that. So I stayed away from it, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, and that's all very true and some excellent points. But the fact of the matter is, if it's 4th and 9 and you have a 56-yard field goal available, they're going to take the 56-yard field goal. I'd be shocked if they didn't. The other thing is, neither of these kickers suck where they would just avoid kicking altogether. They're both solid kickers, so I think they'll give them their opportunities. So we'll see. I bet you feel like that was a win, getting one you didn't even want off the board. Well, what are you going to do next?
Exactly. I am going to take Jalen Hurts to have over 200 passing yards.
Shit.
And the main reason for that is in most betting markets, he's sitting somewhere between 210 and 215 passing yards at his over-under. So getting an extra 10 or 15 yards on this one in this Sound Up Seattle Super Bowl bet is free value. We're looking at value dogs here. That's the value. That's the value that I'm looking at.
Son of a bitch. He's always scraping value together. He's too good at it. If only he could do it during the regular season. That's a good pick.
You leave that out of this.
I definitely would have taken that one if you didn't. He's had, a very up and down season and a very up and down playoff, especially in terms of total yards per game. But people forget he threw for 320 against the Chiefs last time. Now, this is a much improved defense to that one he faced, but regardless, he has the reps of doing it. So I like that pick as well. I do think I'm going to kind of bounce off of that, and I'm not only going to try to win this next one, but I'm going to try to take yours away. And by doing that, I'm going to take Saquon over 110 rushing yards.
I wasn't going to pick that if I picked the Jalen Hurts one, so there you go. Yeah.
See, we're good at this, man. We're good at this. That's, controversial. I think his over-under is probably closer to 90 online, but the dude has had 2 200-yard games this postseason alone. He's just been a monster. In this biggest game of the year against a really good defense, I would not be surprised if they're trying to limit Hurts. And so, I see one of two things happening. Either Hurts is awesome, and then there's no way Saquon gets over 110, I don't think. Or Saquon's just dicing up the defense, and Hurts doesn't have the chance to get over 200. So, kind of a counter to yours, but that could be a losing move for me, because if it goes against me, that might be it right there. That's a win for you and a potential loss for me. But
you got to take risks here.
Got to take risks.
No, I like that one. And going kind of against the grain where it's I could go either or on those, and I would basically automatically win one.
Sure.
But I like where your head's at. I'm going to take with my next pick, Travis Kelce. We said 60 yards for Travis Kelce.
60 for Travis.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over on that one, purely because I think this Eagles offensive line is so dangerous, and Mahomes. Maybe a little too much information for you here, but the Mahomes rushing is a little bit scary because he's just more likely to be sacked than he was in the last couple of games. So the ability for him to dump off to Kelce and things like that, I think the short passing game is going to be very big for the Chiefs, and it's usually pretty big for them in terms of the Super Bowl and late season situations. So I just like Kelce. It's also, Super Bowl he performs as we said. So looking at a bunch of good things for him this week. We'll see how he plays, but I like the 60 yards.
Yeah, dude, the guy's just a monster in the Super Bowl every single year. He's undoubtedly their best and most reliable receiving option right now, and they're going to need to throw the ball because this Eagles team has a great defense, and they're going to score points. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on Mahomes and Kelce to make it work. And if it doesn't work, I don't see any way that the Chiefs win, but I do think it's more likely that they hit the stride they hit every single year, and this is a really interesting game. I'm kind of playing off that again. This is a tough one for me. I don't think it's obvious, but I am going to take the win-loss, and I'm taking the Eagles to win. The reason for that, it's one of those things where I think when you're looking at like deciding factors on who wins or who loses, the Eagles have a lot more of those deciding factors, but the Chiefs' deciding factors are just like bigger, where it's like the Eagles have just as good, if not better, at defense. They have a way better running game. Their quarterback is more dangerous in the run game as well. Their best receivers are better. But the ones against that are Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid is Andy Reid. And they're winning the two, kind of biggest question marks in any football game, which is quarterback and coaching. So I don't feel fantastic about this pick because of that, but it all goes together. If Saquon has over 110, I think Eagles win. If Kelsey has under 60 yards, the Eagles definitely win.
Yep.
I just think, a lot of things have to go right for the Chiefs to win this one. And obviously they've shown the ability to make things go right when they need to. But at some point the train's coming off the rails.
Yeah. The thing that concerns me, and I would have picked the Eagles as well. So I'm okay to take the Chiefs, but I think in terms of the Chiefs, the people that I think are going to have to make a big play are the Chiefs' defensive backs. Trent McDuffie needs to have a big one, and probably I think they need to get Jalen Hurts to make a turnover or two, and then the Chiefs will have a better chance to win. But I think if you just let the Eagles kind of control the ball, move it up and down the field with Saquon and their rushing game, I think the Eagles have a much easier path, I think, to win this one. I think firepower-wise, the Eagles are better. Defensively, the Eagles have just such a great, Jalen Carter is such a great run stopper and just a great, disruptor on the interior. So a lot of good things coming the Eagles' way, and I think the Chiefs need a couple positive outcomes when it comes to interceptions, fumbles, just creating turnovers. So we will see what happens in this game. I'm excited to watch it, dude. I've got such a fun Super Bowl party that I'm hosting this weekend. It's gonna be so great.
Son of a bitch, where's the invite?
8 different dishes. You want to fly to Missouri?
I wasn't sick. I'd think about it.
But with that, I think this is the final pick, right? I get the Mahomes over under 30 yards.
You get to pick which side of it you want to be on.
And I am going to take. Oh man,
See,
I think
this
I'm going
is
to
the
take
tough
the
one.
under.
This is
I think
the
I'm going to
tough
take the under, and the only reason for that is because of the sacks. Like I think Mahomes is probably going to take one 10 to 15 yard sack, and that alone is just so tough to recover from if you're only rushing for 30 yards. Like Mahomes may have, I think his over under for rushes is 6.5 right now in a lot of markets, and even if he has those are like 7-yard chunks, and that includes his kneel downs basically. So it's like you get 4 7-yard chunks and 3 kneel downs, and you're kind of done. And that's still not even 30 yards. If you include the sacks, it's kind of screwed. So that's what I'm looking at right now.
That's totally fair. The kneel downs hurt a lot. 30 yards is a lot. I could see him having a couple of big scrambles and still not getting to 30 yards. And this Eagles defensive line is no joke. So if he's going to be limited, I could see him being limited here. That was pats on the back to us. I think we did the right job. We could argue about the order of the other picks, but I think we left the right one for the last one.
Yes.
I could take over or under on 30. No real feelings there. So good work by us. Reasonable pick by you. I hope he does it on the ground.
That'll also, that'll go with the Eagles winning the game. So if the Eagles win, I bet Mahomes will have less than 30 yards too.
That's right. But then we split that. I get Eagles, you get under.
I'll take that.
All right. In summary, Jalen Hurts over under 200 yards. Tyler has the over. I have the under. Kickers missing a field goal. I have yes. Tyler has no. Mahomes 30 or more rushing yards. I have yes. He has no. Eagles with the win. I have yes. Tyler has no. Kelsey over 60 receiving yards. Tyler has yes. I have no. And last but not least, ref controversy. Tyler has yes. I have no. I missed one there. Saquon over under 110 yards. I have yes. Tyler has no. Perfect. We'll let you know how it goes, but what's great about this? It's we can guarantee something that we could not guarantee in our Value Dog segment, which is that one of us is going to win more of these than they do lose. It's impossible for us both to come out of this with a losing record. So it'll be fun to see who makes some theoretical money this week.
Oh, value dogs wise, I need to study the tape, man. I need to know what went wrong this last season and really figure it out. I'm gonna rewatch all of our YouTube videos and just be like, okay, where did I go wrong here? Because it was so bad, and I don't really know what happened. I would think I was kind of chasing the what's it called when you just like keep doubling down.
Oh yeah, you were. What is that? A sunk cost? You were chasing your sunk cost.
You know, when you do it in betting and you're like the line keeps moving because your team just like keeps going down and you still just chase that like
it's
plus.
Definitely going to turn around.
All that stuff. So
you know,
I was doing that and I need to fix it.
Yeah, you should fix it. But I was thinking next year a fun little segment to add into value dogs. I like it the way it is. It's good that we can be punished and finish with an awful record. It's also good that if we kick ass, we can have an awesome record. But we should pick one game every week next year where we do something like this, where like each week one person gets to choose the game and the other person gets to pick the side that they want on it, and just keep track over the course of the year. Like a head-to-head combined will be 500. Like see which one of us can potentially dominate the other.
I like that. It'll be like it'll be a separate thing from value dog. We'll figure out a name for that. We'll figure out a name for it.
Yeah,
we'll include it at the end of each episode.
We got 8 months to brainstorm.
All right. Anything to say, man? We've been rambling for 45 minutes, just chilling. So, anything else to say about the pod?
No, I need to go black out in a bathtub.
For your sickness or for other reasons?
Well, I got to get rid of the sickness. Vodka's known to do the trick.
All right. Well, for John Carey, I'm Tyler Cartwright. This has been the Sound Up Seattle podcast. We hope you enjoyed this quick and efficient 45-minute podcast. We're always keen on doing that. I don't know how those podcasters that are 30 minutes and below do it. It's just so easy to talk for 45.
They must just not have anything to say.
You can find Sound Up Seattle on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, all at Sound Up Seattle, all lowercase, all one word. You can find me, Tyler, at TyCart50, everywhere it's important. You can also, sorry, I skipped this. You can find Sound Up Seattle on YouTube, which is where I hope you guys are watching and listening and seeing John's great reactions to this, because the man really puts in a lot of work in terms of his attitude, his vibe. He put in a lot of work in the vibe today.
It's all about the hand motions. I don't care that they can't see them. I know you can. You're really the reason I do this.
Just for us to hang out, man.
Yeah. Left to St. Louis.
Right.
We got to talk about sports.
And yeah. Follow, like, subscribe, all that stuff. You can find John.
House sitting my parents' dog. Pretty cute. Joey. He's a good egg. We like him.
Oh, I like Joey. All right, man. I guess with all that being said, what is even going on right now?
Is that sacrilegious? I guess I can say go Kraken. I don't really want to. We forgot to talk about the Zags, but we'll do that next week. I'm not saying go Zags.
Yes, I'm gonna shit talk you about the Zags just off air. Yeah,
please. I've already cried enough this week.
All right, I'll say go Dogs. UW's gonna turn it around here against Nebraska.
Go Dogs.